Well, hi, I'm Lionel Windsor, a New Testament lecturer at Moore College in Sydney. Now, this is the final summary of a series of videos where I'm explaining what obedience and submission mean in a book of the Bible called 1 Peter. I've recently written a scholarly article about it in a journal called the Global Anglican. I thought it'd be helpful to make my research a bit more accessible for everyone, and that's what this series of videos is all about. This final video is based on my summary of the whole article. So if you want an overall summary of what I say in the article, here it is. Obedience in 1 Peter means heeding the gospel message. And that involves a holistic reorientation of life in light of Christ's death and resurrection. In other words, it's conversion. The word disobey means being unpersuaded. The word obey is also used to describe a wife heeding and honouring her husband, especially in difficult circumstances. Submission in 1 Peter means voluntarily placing yourself in an ordered relationship or arrangement. And that involves preserving the integrity of the relationship and honouring the person in authority. Now, there's a variety of such ordered relationships, with a corresponding variety in the kinds of authority in view. Now, the terminology of obedience and submission in 1 Peter doesn't imply just grudgingly following specific orders. It doesn't imply suppressing your will in favour of somebody else. And it might involve following specific instructions, but that's not the central idea. In fact, when the person being submitted to is not good, submission may involve doing good despite what the person in authority wants and trusting God when you're slandered. Now, there's nothing commendable about tolerating abuse in a marriage or in any other situation. And if you're suffering in this way, you can find encouragement in the New Testament to seek justice and your own safety. And I would say do that. Seek justice and seek your own safety. Now, my research on submission and obedience in 1 Peter has led me to question pretty seriously some common interpretations called postcolonial interpretations. They focus on systemic injustice in human institutions like empire and ancient slavery and first century patriarchy. But that obscures the Bible's focus on God as creator and judge of all. In 1 Peter, human orders or arrangements like government or economic structures or marriage, they have an inherent value. And that's true even though there's clearly injustice involved. That's because these orders exist under God as creator and judge. Now, yes, it's true, those who are redeemed by Christ's death and resurrection are indeed what you might call, what Peter calls sojourners, temporary residents, aliens in the world. But still, we can genuinely do good in these arrangements. We can follow Christ's example. We can be secure in our salvation and future as God's children. So for Peter, submission in human relationships, it's far more than a strategy for surviving unjust systems, as postcolonial interpreters often put it. No, it's a right attitude that redeemed Christians can have towards fellow humans within God's creation. That means I think 1 Peter's more directly applicable to our modern world than is often allowed for. Take Peter's discussion of household slaves and masters, for example. Now, it's entirely right that modern slavery is illegal. Sadly, modern slavery is still widespread and it needs to be opposed and it can't be condoned. But still, Peter's encouragements in the broad context of first century slavery can still be applied to people involved in legal but not great or ideal economic arrangements. You think of call centre operators or gig economy workers. 1 Peter has a lot to say to them, far beyond just telling them to stay put or survive or resist. It can tell them to do good in those circumstances and to trust God for the result. Also, 1 Peter chapter 3 has a lot of comfort and wisdom for Christian wives with unbelieving husbands, and that's true in any society. I went into detail on that in the video in the series. But having said that, we actually need to realise that 1 Peter doesn't say everything that needs to be said about these topics. So for example, if you want to see how the order of marriage is grounded in creation and redemption, we won't find it directly addressed in 1 Peter. We need to go to places like Genesis 1 to 2, 1 Corinthians 11, Ephesians 5. If we want to see, for example, more about slavery, especially if we want to see how right and good it is to help people move away from unjust economic situations if they can, then we won't find that quite so directly in 1 Peter. We should go to places like 1 Corinthians 7 or Philemon. Well, I hope that as you follow the video series, that the exploration of obedience and submission in 1 Peter has been helpful for you and encouraging for you as you seek to understand what the Bible says. I do thank you for watching, and I trust that this has been really helpful for you.